How's it going, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Geeky Gentleman, the podcast for all your geeky needs, fashion, and lifestyle tips, all rolled into one perfectly packaged podcast. Today's episode, we're talking about Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker, and the theories on how we can expect this saga to end. Today is a very special episode because I will be interviewing my first guest. Talking all things Star Wars with me is Filup Molina, the creator of new Rockstars. Alrighty then, enough said, let's jump right into the podcast. How's it going, Filup?
What? I'm your first guest?
You are my first guest. This is it. This is like, will always be remembered as the first one.
I would not have agreed to this if I knew you're gonna ruin me. You're gonna hurt me so bad.
So where are you at right now, Filup? Let's tell our listeners where you're at. Let's make them jealous.
Oh, I mean, if I'm making them jealous, then I'll say that I'm in my office looking out at the sunny mountains that surround Los Angeles, the palm trees that are waving in the wind, and the sky that's raining candy.
So last time I was in LA was almost like about a year and a half ago. I technically should have been there this year, but my sister decided to get married in Texas instead of LA. So I ended up going to Texas, so I kind of missed out on the whole West Coast love.
You were here a year and a half ago and we didn't hang out?
I mean, we didn't know each other then.
Okay, that's an excuse.
I mean, our lives have changed and enriched since then. But you know what? Next time I'm there, I am so coming into these offices. I'm going to make you have a very short work day.
We'll see how this interview goes, and then maybe.
All right. Fair enough. Well, again, first off, I really just want to congrats to you for being my first guest. Thank you again. I really do appreciate you phoning in.
Congrats to you for keeping this podcast going. I'm actually a fan of it. I have been checking it out, and you're growing, and I'm excited for you.
Oh, thank you very much. That really makes me happy. So I know you're currently working on a lot of geeky projects that I'm sure my listeners are very interested in. Do you have any quick update on anything you're currently working on?
We did this crazy thing where behind the scenes we expanded New Rockstars into a larger company, kind of the alphabet to Google. So now New Rockstars has New Rockstars Digital Studios above it, and we are now getting into everything. We basically, so in Rockstars Digital Studios, NRDS, nerds, right? That concept of us realizing that you can nerd out about so many different things, and it's not just Marvel and DC and Star Wars and Walking Dead or whatever. It can be, cooking. It can be so many different things that people get very obsessed with. And so we're actually following that thread. We've been known for a long time as being the people that go too far. Probably we dive too deep, but we give the most in-depth analysis we can that an audience of diehard rabid fans is pretty appreciative of, we think. And we realize that approach to just other kinds of content is really kind of underserved out there. So our style, we're now bringing it to politics and to food content and to lifestyle content and to fitness and a bunch of these different things. But we're in the very nascent stages of that. It's a little infant. The closest thing I can say is right now we're just launching a bunch of new shows. We just launched a new Rick and Morty show called Rick'splained. We're launching a Star Wars show called Wookiee Leaks. We've got
Wookiee Leaks. Well played,
sir. We've got a bunch of these shows. So mostly, honestly, it's just kind of a really exciting time. And there's gonna be, there's we're talking about making a comic book. There's a lot of really exciting stuff coming. But now it's kind of just the time to start paying attention, and then hopefully soon a lot of the stuff will start coming out publicly.
Dude, that's so crazy. You guys are literally about to blow up. Now I'm really going to be like, I'm moving to LA. Hi. I actually discovered new Rockstars when I can't remember which show it was first now. If it was Legion or what is it? Westworld. But I literally I like YouTube. I was like episode 1 of one of those shows explained. Yeah. And it was new Rockstars. I think it was Westworld because I literally just watched the whole season and I was like, I think I understand what happened, but I kind of just want to have it explained to me, just all the episodes right after each other. And I think that's where I stumbled upon New Rockstars, and I was just like, yes, this makes sense now.
Yeah, that's how a lot of people find us, is we essentially like to be the answer to the question.
Yeah, and you guys actually do you guys are very quick on it too. Like literally, like the episode will air, and then you guys are already there dissecting the episode. So for anyone who's likes to watch like TV shows and not necessarily have it all like spoon fed to them, but kind of like even get theories on where the show is possibly going. I mean, that's why I definitely love New Rockstars.
Thanks so much, bud.
No worries. But let's jump into Star Wars. We have Star Wars here. So, first up, Philip, what do you think Rise of Skywalker means?
Okay, that's such a loaded question, right? It could mean so many things, and it's probably, I mean, it's one of the most debated things right now about Star Wars. But I'm gonna go ahead and okay, just for the rest of this podcast, I'm gonna go ahead and put on my like New Rockstars theory hat, where I like when we kind of go out on a limb and we take these big swings. So I come back when I'm dead wrong and you can really shame me, but I'm gonna go out on a limb and I'm gonna say that no, it's not that like Rey is secretly a Skywalker or something and that's her last name. I'm not a fan of that. It's not exciting enough. I'm gonna say my favorite theory is the idea that all this time, especially in this new trilogy, we've been learning that everyone's approach to the Force is wrong, right? The Jedi seem to be the guardians of the proper way to use the Force or something. But if in Last Jedi, you know, say what you will about the movie, the canon now has Luke Skywalker saying that the Jedi are wrong about the Force. But we've also seen that the rebels approach to the intergalactic issues are kind of like guerrilla warfare, kind of terrorist tactics too, right? Like the good guys are no longer so obviously the good guys, and then the bad guys, you obviously have Kylo, who is I say Kylo instead of Kylo Ren because my dog is named Kylo, and so I always just think Kylo. But you have Kylo Ren, who is clearly struggling to be bad, right? It's almost like he wants to be bad, but internally he's not meant to be bad, and he's struggling against that in both of these films that we've seen so far. So I actually think that the only way that this all makes sense is that they're aiming toward a place where both sides, the Sith and the Jedi, are incorrect about the way to use the Force, and that it's time for maybe the religion around the Force to evolve. So I'm thinking that's what the Rise of Skywalker is, that Skywalker is going to become to be this new quasi-religion that is about the balanced approach to the Force. Not, like the Jedi side is kind of up its own ass a little bit, like it's self-righteous and like, I don't know, they can't like do anything, they have to wear like just brown for some reason. But the Sith side is like fed by darkness and anger, and like, okay, well that's a bit much too. So I'm thinking something that's more nimble, and I like to think of it as kind of you're nimbly walking a tightrope, balancing between the two sides, and that image to me strikes the image of a Skywalker, and that's also the term Skywalker in Star Wars lore was not always a last name, the same way that someone's last name being Smith was an occupation at one point. To be a Skywalker, I think it'll kind of return to that idea. It's someone who walks, in a balanced line in the sky, on just the right balanced approach to the Force. It also works because if the last film was about the Last Jedi, then I think that perfectly sets up this next stage being about the rise of the first Skywalker.
With the way you explain that, I can actually see it completely going that route. Solely because, like it's being advertised, it's like the end of the Skywalker saga, like this film is like the end of this storylines of these characters. What better way to kind of leave your mark on this entire saga and the franchise itself with changing what we know to be true already, which how, like you explained how, there's a Jedi way and then there's like the Sith way, but now it's literally like, yeah, you guys actually were both wrong, and you guys were both wrong the entire time. This is like, what the Force is, or this is really the way it should have been. And we're going to end it here, and now you're going to have to wait, however long Disney makes us wait for the next Star Wars
Not
films.
very long. Not long, I imagine.
Probably right? They're like, oh yeah, we're going to go on a hiatus for 2 years. But then they can pick up kind of the Force from there. Not like necessarily like, like Skywalkers per se, like the bloodline or whatever. But, like you said, maybe it's like the new Jedi are the Skywalkers, with the name, not necessarily like the what is it, blood association.
Exactly. Maybe it's a whole new sort of temple that's all brand new, and it's also such a good way to honor Luke Skywalker in his name taking on much more meaning than him as a person, but rather him as a movement.
Yeah. Ooh, when this happens, like when I watch this film and it like actually turns out like this, I'm literally gonna be like DMing you. I was like, dude, you were so
We'll
right.
see. I like to take big swings. It makes me very wrong at times too.
I have a feeling that you have this one. I feel it. I feel it in the Force. I feel it. Well, one of the constant themes with the last two Star Wars films is that Force connection that that Rey and Kylo Ren have with each other. How do you see this connection between the two characters playing out in Rise of Skywalker?
Yeah, it is about these two coming together at the end of the day, right? A lot of people wondered how, when we got these new films, who were they going to follow, the old characters or the new? And it's becoming clearer and clearer that they've kind of planted some flags in these two characters, and they're clearly on this collision course repeatedly again and again. It's all headed somewhere. So I definitely agree that they're kindred spirits. And that there's going to be more to this relationship in this next movie. I know the trailer showed us a scene where it looks like they're working together to once again kind of destroy something, but it also shows them kind of fighting each other too. So it's it's probably not going to be all like them holding hands and smoking peace pipes. But if these two if they can find a way to coexist with each other, and then maybe they both have their approaches to the Force. Maybe just to extend what I was already saying before, maybe these could be our founders of this new Skywalker school. Like, these will be the two founders and first teachers of it. Maybe that's where they're headed. I definitely am going to say I don't want them to fall in love. I'm hoping it's not that.
I actually don't want them to do that either. I felt like they were trying to do that in that, what was it? Was it The Last Jedi when they're like linked minds and he's like completely like, they're like bare chested. Yeah. And you're like, okay, this is kind of odd.
It was not attractive in their
It was awkward. It was completely awkward when it was like completely out of the like, what was happening in the storyline. They're like,
yeah,
well, this is odd. It can just happen
let's
whenever.
Just put his pants too high. That was such a weird choice. We refer to that at New Rockstars as force time, by the way. Yeah,
I love it. Well, one of the biggest disappointments for me in particularly Star Wars The Last Jedi was all the mystery surrounding Snoke. Like, I felt like there was like a real build up to this character, and I was really just kind of let down when it was revealed he wasn't anyone quote unquote special. Now, did you have a theory on who Snoke was before he was killed off? And do you think we will get any more of that backstory in Rise of Skywalker?
Well, yes, I did have a theory. Yes, I also think we're going to get more about Snoke, because I think that J.J. Abrams is just something about the way he's been talking about this film. It does feel like he's going to try to tie up some loose ends, but also anything that it's almost like they've been listening to the fans, honestly. So the new Sonic trailer came out today. I don't know if you saw that, but they really listened to the fans, that they completely redesigned Sonic, and he actually looks great now. And part of me feels like episode 9's gonna be a little bit like, hearing a complaint like yours and not feeling enough about Snoke, and then deciding like, guys, we really got to make it clear why Snoke was there. I do have another big theory about what my guess is that Snoke's deal was, but I mean, I don't know. I'd have to take a big drink of water to get you through it right now. I don't know if you want to hear it.
I do want to hear it. Spoiler warning, guys, just in case. Spoiler warning
in case I get it right and ruin your life. Okay. All right. Okay, so if I'm going really extreme here, then I'm going to say this requires to go along with the idea that there's going to be an involvement of some clones in this movie. Now, obviously, we've seen that clones were a thing in Star Wars before, and we know that Palpatine, who's back, sees a lot of value in these clones. And they were clones of a great Mandalorian warrior, right, Jango Fett, back in the day, but that whole line of clones ain't got shit on potentially Force-sensitive clones. So this is based in the theory that Rey is a clone. It's why her parents were no one. It's also why she sees, when she goes to seek her parents, that she sees thousands of versions of herself. So this is that theory. But these clones would be ones that could potentially wield the Force, which is way more powerful than the previous clone army that we've seen. But they need inspiration, right? You just don't want a bunch of you essentially could easily have created an army of Jedi. So if you want them to do your bidding, then they need some sort of mad mind controlling them in order to keep them from potentially becoming good, which is, I guess, technically what would have happened with Rey, right? She got left on Jakku and somehow on her own devices ended up becoming essentially a Jedi. That's also essentially what mirroring Finn's story, right? Of he's supposed to be this brainwashed soldier, but he goes off and forges his own way. So avoiding that for the rest of the clones, Palpatine is using kind of a version of being a Force ghost, but not the exact same thing, to possess these new clones or distract or control their minds. And so this is where it goes back to Snoke. Snoke would be the guy who's in charge of the whole clone operation, because Palpatine is not physically around anymore to run a clone factory or whatever it is that he has. So he has this strong, wealthy guy making all that happen, and he's making Snoke a kind of like his apprentice, a quasi-apprentice to him. But the twist in their relationship would be that you get this guy, you teach him the Force, he's already powerful, he's already rich. So wouldn't he realize that he doesn't actually have to do what Palpatine says, and he doesn't have to put Palpatine in some position to return and be the leader again? He sees a power vacuum, and he decided he would fill it himself. Right? He gives himself the title of Supreme Leader. He makes his own version of the Empire. But now that Kylo has killed him in the last film, then that gets him out of Palpatine's way, and now Palpatine is no longer maybe being suppressed. Maybe Snoke was holding Palpatine back, and so now that's why Palpatine is finally back to take his throne back. It's because Snoke is no longer around to block him.
Okay, fair. But since Snoke has died, though, do you think there's going to be trouble now with Snoke's Force ghosts in any way, or do you think he's dead? We won't have to worry about that. He's out. Palpatine's
yeah,
in,
it's kind of you don't put Snoke could show up as and me too, but it's Scrappy Doo or something. We don't need Snoke again.
Fair. I mean, we have Palpatine's on. He's well on his way. Well, speaking of all this, characters not being there anymore, with Carrie Fisher's death, a lot of fans are really distraught. I especially, because we just knew that Episode 9 was going to really focus heavily on the Princess Leia character. How do you think the film is going to wrap up that storyline?
It's complicated, because I think that the film wanted to wrap the storyline up a certain way. There was a news article recently, or an interview with Carrie Fisher's brother, who said that from what he knew, the film was going to be all about her, and it was going to set her up to be kind of almost like a queen Jedi figure, and that she was playing this pivotal role. And then, you have J.J. Abrams saying that, despite the fact that they didn't really have any new footage for this film shot yet when she passed, he doesn't want to use any CGI whatsoever. So then it put them in a really tough place. So I feel like this is a little less of what I want the story to do and what I would theorize the story would do, and a little more of just practically what they are going to be able to pull off. It's going to be tough, right? We know that they can reuse footage so Billie Lourd, her daughter, I guess, signed off on reusing older footage, and there was more footage from Force Awakens that wasn't used. I remember there was a scene between Carrie with Princess Leia and Maz Kanata exchanging a lightsaber, so we might be able to get a little bit of something there. There was a deleted scene where Princess Leia was issuing some commands back to Coruscant or something, and so she might be able to serve as a general for a moment. There might be a beat of that, but realistically it feels like she probably will slip away fairly quickly, and maybe into obviously they have a lot of footage of her in essentially a comatose state in the from the previous film, when she comes back from her space flight. Yeah, but
Seriously.
maybe there's some footage there that they took, maybe some close-ups there that are essentially can be converted to her, being laid to rest or something. I don't think that they're going to get
Yeah.
too fancy with it because that would require CGI and all kinds of things. I think it's going to be a subtle thing where she essentially fades away. Now, I do think it kind of be cool to let the character live on. I think it'd be interesting if maybe they don't kill her off in this movie. Maybe she makes her moves, and they use some footage to imply that like she can finally essentially retire, kind of, and be at peace, and be happy with the way things are. They don't necessarily need to kill that character in order to justify Carrie Fisher not having the footage for it. But yeah, dude, this is probably the thing I have the least idea about, because it's not really about like what Star Wars would do, but rather what filmmakers have to do in this scenario.
Yeah, I feel like no matter which way they do it, I do think it'd be done tastefully, and I think there's just so much love with the Princess Leia character, and obviously it was like a tragedy, so I feel like people are going to be okay with what happens no matter what, but there's just going to always still be an overwhelming sense of what could have been if the situation was different.
That said, it's still gonna work on me so well. Like, I'm gonna be bawling my eyes out. I heard that one thing that they might use is one of her best friends has voicemail recordings of her, like, just leaving her sweet messages, and they might use some of those voice recordings. And I'm like, oh my god, like, to hear it's authentically Carrie Fisher saying like just a sweet loving message to an old friend of hers, and that's just like in the movie. Oh man, I'll fall apart.
Yeah, there are going to be tears. There will be tears. In one of the trailers, we saw a brief glimpse of what can only be Rey falling to the dark side of the Force, and she has that cool red dual lightsaber. Obviously, this is probably Disney playing, like a prank, being super clever, and it's probably most likely like a red herring. What do you think it signifies, though, for the character of Rey?
So I'll say if I was a betting man, which I very much am not, but if I was, yeah, I know. I make too many bad predictions to bet on anything. But so if I was betting, I'd say, yeah, you're right. It probably is just kind of like a momentary thing where, it's a cool shot and it makes people ask this exact question leading up to the movie. But because I said I was going to wear my crazy theory hat, I'll say, that ain't Rey. That's a Rey clone that is controlled by Palpatine.
Ta-da! Well done, sir. Well done. You brought that right back to that. I mean, then it also now kind of like gives more like weight to this whole like clones and Clone Wars stuff. It's not like just like a thing that just like pops up. It's like actually like it's kind of like a recurring thing,
which is
like
the George Lucas's thing that he gets made fun of a lot for, is that all these things come back because it's like poetry, it rhymes. But actually, I think it is fair to say, when you hear J.J. Abrams talk about Star Wars, he's been talking about how it wouldn't make sense for him to wrap this thing up and it not connect back to the original trilogy and to the prequel trilogy. He's like, if these are the last stories, last chapters of a book, what book ends where the last chapters have nothing to do with the entire rest of the book? And I think that's fair.
Yeah, you kind of have to like shout out to everything.
The clone thing sounds kind of crazy. It's like, I don't know. It's one of the few huge events of this saga. Why wouldn't it come back?
Yeah, I mean, I can see that happening. My wondering, because obviously, I on the side of Disney's kind of like just toying with our emotions in the as they do with any trailer. They even use footage that never even is in the movie, but when you see like The Last Jedi and Rey's on the island with Luke and she's like feeling like the earth, and then she goes down to like like the dark area and Luke is like, you didn't even try and stop yourself. That's why I'm just like, is there like, how are they going to play with this darkness that she kind of has or can just quickly become but isn't evil? Like, that's why I was wondering, is there
honestly,
something more
that'd be
there?
Super interesting if it was actually a repeat of Luke where he comes close to the edge, and I don't mean old Luke, I mean Luke in the original trilogy, where the temptation is strong. The only reason why I think that'd be great, but the only reason why I'm not seeing it is because I don't think we've gotten enough of Rey starting to go down that path.
Yeah, right. And we don't want to rehash of Luke. We don't want to repeat already. Now, it's the end. We know it's the end of this Skywalker saga, and it wouldn't be an ending without a body count. Which of our heroes do you think will meet their end in Rise of Skywalker?
Bummer question.
I know, but like literally, like if no one dies, like how is that? Like how is that realistic? I mean, we're talking about like, the Force and lightsaber, so where's the realisticness in that? But like, where's the drama? Like, where's the drama? Then
I will
if
remind
everyone
you
is
that
just
in Last
happy
Jedi, I
ending?
believe they killed thousands of like rebels.
Fair.
Yeah.
Of the main
Main
characters.
characters, I'll say they probably will, blow out Carrie Fisher's light, her candle a bit. I think that Princess Leia probably will have a nice funeral of some sort or something, but she probably will go down. And if I had to say someone else, I'd say maybe Chewie, because if Leia's gone and Han is gone and Chewie's lived a really long life, I mean, it kind of is like if you need to sacrifice one more tragic or have a tragic death that's going to hit us all pretty hard, but also kind of is on the end of a journey, then it might be Chewie.
Yeah, like you could see him like going down fighting, because it's kind of like what else do I have left? I might as well go out with a bang.
About that, so I'll move on from that one. I'll say, and then the trailer certainly is making us feel like C-3PO is not long for this galaxy.
Yeah, when you saw the trailer, you're like, okay, you're either gonna like not make it, or they want us to think you're not gonna make it. So
I
someone else
actually
is
don't
dying.
think C-3PO will go down though. But I honestly, though, that said, I don't think we're gonna lose. Maybe Maz Kanata. She's also a lot older, but I don't know that we'll lose any of our new cast. Both because you can spin them all out into new films, but also because it's a J.J. Abrams thing. I think he finds a way to give us a glimpse at death and at the the closest you can come to dying without actually dying. His characters often make it. And I feel like these, I don't know, I feel like he's going to end the saga on just as happy a note as he's able to. And I think that, that's one way to do it, is just kind of like leave us with a good number of our heroes to, at least in our imaginations, imagine that they go on happily.
Yeah, happily, and that another like dark empire doesn't come encroaching on the galaxy.
Yeah,
far down in the
everybody's
distance.
Gonna die, right? You think the bad guys are gonna win?
I don't necessarily think they're gonna win. I mean, I think the good guys obviously are gonna win, but I do feel if everyone made it out unscathed, like obviously, like I said, with the situation, we probably can assume the Princess Leia character might not make it through. If everyone else makes it unscathed, then I feel like where is like the drama of it? Like I mean, like it's not like I want one of them to die, but like in terms of like drama and like kind of delivering, like a good moving film, I feel someone has to kind of.
Yeah, a quick question for you. How did you feel about Quicksilver dying in Age of Ultron?
I mean, that just opens up a whole can of worms, because I know why they more or less killed him, because the whole Fox's Quicksilver was kind of like alive and well. This is when Fox still had X-Men rights. So I feel like, Fox and Disney just kind of like had a handshake deal with Fox gets Quicksilver, Marvel gets Scarlet Witch, so they axed them really quickly. Now that Marvel have the X-Men film rights, I'm really hoping they bring back Quicksilver, because I was not okay with his death. I much rather had Hawkeye die. I know, I'm sorry, all you Hawkeye fans. I really much rather seen Hawkeye bite the dust.
I get
it.
He's a great character, but the reason I mentioned that one is because that's Joss Whedon, right? And Joss Whedon is
Joss Whedon kills everyone. He's so good. He's so good at that.
The reason you're saying, he's like, if this is all life and death, where's the death? And why is the death only on the bad guys? We got to see some good guys go down too. So yeah, it's tough. It's like you can, if you don't kill anyone, then people are upset. But if you kill the wrong person, people will also be upset.
This is true. And I'm actually a big Joss Whedon fan. My favorite TV show to this day is Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Oh, me too.
So it's literally the best show ever. Like, everyone watch Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
I'm on my third rewatch right now.
I've literally turned so many people into Buffy fans, but I do think it's because of kind of that TV show, and just, like, you lose so many like prominent characters throughout the entire run. But it's like, it's always, like when you aren't expecting it, and it always delivers such an emotional blow. I guess now I'm just kind of brainwashed into feeling like every franchise I'm into has to kind of like give me that kind of like shock, trauma value, or else it's kind of like, okay, well,
Well, it's all about stakes, right? And so for you to believe that the conflict matters, then the stakes have to feel like they matter. And while in some movies, it's not about your immediate life or death. For instance, The King's Speech, is about a guy not stuttering through a speech, but the stakes of the film are that he has to inspire an entire nation to rise up and, fight against tyranny, and a lot of them are going to die, and if he does a bad job, their whole country may fail in this endeavor. So the stakes are through the roof, but nobody dies in that movie other than his dad at the beginning, but not related to a bad speech or something. Meanwhile, though, other films, when they are about the actual physical fighting, then the stakes are it's pretty right there that you want to see someone hurt or physically injured. That's why Game of Thrones, you need physical death, because that's the only stake that makes sense when all the conflict is fighting.
Yeah. Oh, Game of Thrones, you were so good until the last season. So good. We won't start that train. Train. All right. So I know you had your theory for Star Wars that there's like clones, essentially. There's gonna be clones, and that's gonna that's gonna tie into Palpatine's return. So kind of the theory I was playing around with is, yes, you're gonna have Palpatine trying to inhabit kind of like a host body, because we know his original body was killed in the original trilogy. Now I was kind of seeing that because we also saw in the last trailer that Rey's kind of approaching someone on the chair, which is of course probably Palpatine in some physical form. So I was kind of seeing in my head that, you're going to have like Rey and Kylo Ren fighting this physical host body that, is containing Palpatine, and that you're going to kind of, in the last hurrah, get all our deceased Jedis, like Yoda, Anakin, Luke, Obi-Wan, fighting the Force ghosts of Palpatine. Because the whole point is you have to get rid of Palpatine's Force ghost. Like, if that doesn't, die, he's just going to, come back. Could you see the film kind of going towards a climactic battle like that? And if it does, how would you see it kind of ensuing?
Okay. Could I see it? Yes, I can see it, and I could see the nerdgasm of everyone exploding in their seats as they're watching essentially the final Avengers Assemble moment of Avengers Endgame, where it's literally every Howard the Duck
everyone's coming out of portals.
Yeah, exactly, where it's just every character we've lost, Misa Jar Jar Binks here to fight for you or something. I don't know. That said, I don't expect that to happen. I think that the scale of the villain, as far as we know so far, doesn't feel like it needs that kind of intervention. I'll say two things. One, I'll say that it feels like more of it needs to be one on a one-on-one or even maybe 2-on-1 kind of playing field, in the same way where where Obi-Wan and Anakin have their one-on-one fight and Obi-Wan has the higher ground. That needs to be a one-on-one fight, right? In order for it to kind of be the side of good kind of feeling like it's won, it can't feel like they kind of cheated.
Fair. But because at this point you've only seen Force, every time you've seen the nice Force ghosts, they're usually just there, making sure everyone's still okay. You've never really seen a surge of power. I mean, the only thing I can think of now is, Last Jedi, Yoda appears for a hot minute and
he blows
calls
up the
down
tree.
lightning and blows down the tree. It's oh, you can do stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there is a very funny idea that Force ghosts can also go haunt a place and be dicks and kind of knock stuff off your bookshelf and stuff. But
I call forth lightning.
Yeah, exactly. But I think also once they become Force ghosts, there's an idea, I can't remember where this is from. This might be from an old comic, that Obi-Wan, the moment he transitions, because he doesn't exactly die, and he becomes a Force ghost, that he kind of becomes unstuck in time, kind of like Slaughterhouse-5, and he can kind of see everything in every direction all at once.
Okay.
And it makes them not passive, but it makes them, I think, see beyond just this individual moment. And I think that idea implies to me that maybe Force ghosts can show up and give the proper nudge here or there. Kind of calling back to Game of Thrones too, the way that the Three-Eyed Raven kind of can see it all and maybe has slightly nudged history here or there, like the Hodor moment, but really is not actually, they're not there to, fight the battles of the living. And I think
I can see that. It's more it's more of a passive, the nudge. It's more like a passive, action that has a larger ripple versus a more active, direct approach of here we are making shit happen.
Yeah, but I still think your idea sounds awesome. If I saw like a bunch of pale blue Force ghosts fighting a bunch of pale blue like Sith ghosts and stuff, that'd be great.
Ghost everywhere.
I guess they'd be pale red, but yeah.
Right, yeah, because you haven't really seen like the Force ghosts of the Sith, right?
Not technically, no.
Not technically, right? I was like, am I
yeah.
wrong on this? No, you haven't.
There's some theories, there's some things where, after death they can possess things, which is a lot of idea of where Palpatine might be. And we know that, we've seen the Sith be able to slightly project in certain ways. There's a comic called Shattered Empire where you can see Darth Maul kind of make his like presence known to Princess Leia kind of visually. But no, we haven't seen just straight up, like, if they can just straight up Force Ghost.
Okay, fair enough. Maybe in this film.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Well, so finally, were you happy that Disney decided to bring back Palpatine, or would you have preferred the story to end kind of differently?
I'm, like, at the end of the day, I'm a fan of the how do I put this? The, like, lore of the whole thing so much that it's it can feel like fan service, but at the same time it is that moment in Avengers Endgame when all these characters come out and then Captain America calls over Mjolnir. That is straight up fan service, and yet that is the most epic moment I've ever had in a theater, right? Just sitting in that moment.
Everyone cheered that moment. I feel like everyone who's like barking up Marvel for like like not being like a creative like creative films, or like like all you Martin Scorsese people out there. Like, it is fan service, but it's fan service because it works. And it's like, fans do want to see it, but you know what? They made it work in the story, though.
Right.
Like, that's not something that's like, he just picks it up because, just then and there. They've set that up.
Yeah.
You remember in Age of Ultron when he tried to move it, and it's like, did he not pick it up purposely? Like, there's moments where they've set it up. So it's like, it's fan service, but it's well-deserved fan service.
Yeah, and so there's a difference.
It's well done.
When it doesn't feel like a wink, like, haha, we remember this thing that you guys like, but instead feels like, you know what, why not? Let's take it to this epic conclusion. And so, yeah, the fact that they set up a new trilogy and they gave us all these new characters and they told us that they're important, but for them to actually feel significantly important, that's kind of that's a very difficult task to do, especially with only two movies, these two that have come out recently, that even Snoke, we weren't going to feel like, oh yeah, but he's worse than the Emperor. No one could feel that. It's such a difficult task to do. And so yeah, why not go back and bring back the thing that felt the most chaos and the most danger, and bring it into this thing, because this whole thing is one story. It's not like they're bringing the Emperor in to torment people on Mandalorian or on in Rogue One or something, right? Like, this is that one story that, if you think about it, is about one bloodline. So that's a pretty narrow group of characters that you could work with. It totally makes sense for me, at least.
Yeah, it's because they're kind of like all like interconnected, and I feel like people who watch like the whole Star Wars trilogy like now, like and they've never seen them when they were originally released. When you see the Emperor, when he's like thrown off by Darth Vader, if you were to see that as a teenager now, you'd be like, oh, that was kind of anticlimactic. I thought he was like all like super powerful, But then like I feel like with them bringing him back, they're just like, see, he wasn't just as easily like disregarded. It's like, oh no, he did have like other tricks up his sleeve, and it's all about, for me, it's how they convinced me that he was the man behind the wheel the entire time. Like, that's what I need to be convinced on.
Yeah.
If you can convince me and you can show me how he was doing it and make me believe it, then well done.
I'll call out,
like, I could believe it then.
Yeah, I'll call out two similar examples that you just made me think of that people might have had issues with these movies, but this was still badass. One is Yoda in the prequels is a badass, right? Flipping.
Oh my god, when he was like hopping around with his lightsaber, I was like, at last.
And doesn't it? And it made sense for us to understand, like, okay, this is supposed to be the most epic Jedi that we've had up to now, and yet we've only see him in this like stinky old bog. What can this guy actually do? And so we get to see that. But the even better one for me personally was when you do see Darth Vader in Rogue One at the end, and he is Anakin Skywalker at his prime, but fully evil, and he is a Terminator. He just straight up walks down the hallway, and he's the most epic version of Darth Vader that we've ever seen. Instead of, you know, technically like a day later when we see him in A New Hope, and he kind of is like slow walking, and, you know, he does some force chokes and stuff, but he's not quite as scary a villain. I actually like what you're saying, where they bring in this character and they're like, okay, but you've actually never seen their full threat or full power level.
Yes, and yeah. Oh, now I'm getting excited. I'm just like, oh my god, it's going to be so good.
Yeah, build it up. Hype.
Build it up, right? Everyone go see Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah. I'm sure that won't backfire. Hype all the way.
Hype all the way. Well, Filup, thanks for being my first guest ever on the Geeky Gentleman and for getting all our listeners hyped for Star Wars Rise of Skywalker. I'm literally like excited now. And it's really funny because in my time over here in London, it's like 10:30 and I have to get ready for sleep, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to now. I think I'm a little wired.
Oh man. Have you been yelling in your apartment?
I'm pretty sure the people above my flat are like, what the fuck is this guy going on about? How many times can he say Star Wars?
I also like that they only hear one side of the conversation. So they just think you're
like, who's
insane.
He talking to? He's like talking to no one.
Yep.
Well, if people want to hear more from you and you Rockstars, where should they go?
We can find New Rockstars on YouTube, youtube.com/New Rockstars, or just search on YouTube for New Rockstars. And for me or anything that we have going on, you should just check me out on my socials, both on Instagram and on Twitter at Filup Molina. But Filup spelled really poorly because it's F as in.
Oh, don't worry.
Frank.
I will add it there for you. I will have it there visually so people know.
Great. All right. Great. Well, you'll see. So Filup Molina on pretty much all the socials.
All right. Perfect. Thank you so much, Filup. You have been an amazing first guest.
Oh, thanks so much. You've been fantastic yourself. And you know what? You can come visit based on how this went.
I will allow it now. Yeah. Yes, at last. Yeah. All right, buddy. We'll talk soon, okay?
Right, thanks, bud. Have a good one.
And there you have it, gentlemen. Some inside ideas on how we can expect Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker to end, and what we may see in the epic conclusion to the series. Thanks again for listening to another episode of The Geeky Gentleman. Don't forget to subscribe and rate the podcast. That always makes my day. Feel free to drop me a DM on Instagram. I'm at DriftingDecal. I'd love to hear your thoughts on how you think the Star Wars saga is going to end. If you want more content from me, feel free to visit my blog at www.driftingdudes.com. And until our next podcast adventure, I will talk at you guys later. Bye.